So for the next session, I would like to take us through to welcome our next speaker, Junior Cho. Junior is the CEO of Zurich General Insurance Malaysia. He's responsible for driving Zurich's business strategies to achieve profitable growth for its general insurance business in Malaysia. So Junior is a seasoned industry leader with more than 25 years of experience in the insurance and financial services sector. He has held various strategic and senior management roles in multinationals such as MetLife International, Allianz Life, and Cigna International. And I would like to also quote from his recent LinkedIn message, the message that he also is advocating is the urgency for us to collectively act is unwavering, while the impact of our hesitation or delay is damaging. And so without further ado, I will pass on to Junior, but I will also say that we are also blessed to be also joined by Teresa Wong, who is the Chief Risk Officer of Zurich General as well. So Teresa shares the same drive in advancing climate risk management and other critical social efforts like EPIC Society Program to support the Orang Asli initiative. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to you, Junior and Teresa.
Thank you, Irina. So thank you, everyone. I'm blessed here to be sharing the stage with Teresa, as well as each of one of you joining us in the conference. I'll dive right in, and our focus is really talking about applying sustainability in insurance. And for us, hold on, let me just get the presentation. For us, what we'd like to do is share the story in terms of what Zurich is doing globally to give you some context as well as what we're doing in Malaysia. We hope that this is very helpful. For us, we would like to share that journey in terms of what Zurich has undertaken, have a little discussion in terms of what our role is in the climate change and sustainability aspect, and then share the roadmap in terms of how we're moving towards that transition, and then talking a little bit about the sustainable products and services that we are looking to develop as we move forward, and then share a little about our impact to date. So when we talk about sustainability, I won't define what sustainability is, but our ambition is to become one of the most impactful and responsible companies, which is a very big ambition, and a lot of a common ambition that a lot of the big companies do have. And really, it's about safeguarding the future for not only our company, but the society. And that society can entail our employees, our customers, our partners, and in the communities that we serve. So I'll focus more in terms of why are we doing this? And there would be a common thread for a lot of the companies that are out there, but also what is it that Zurich is embarking on? So for us, our vision is creating a brighter future together. It's really about making sure that we can serve and protect the lives of our customers, our employees, and our partners. And with that vision, sustainability is the only way that we can really continue that on. And for us, that's central to our purpose in terms of how we want to differentiate ourselves and where we see our growth is. Now, this purpose allows us to unify all our customers as well as our people for a shared vision. And for us, that's extremely important. But I think what's also important is that the regulators and the investors are finding themselves much more attuned to the needs of sustainable growth for their respective markets. And for that, they have higher expectations, especially for companies like Zurich. Now, I will tell you that Zurich is one small piece of a larger kind of collective, and we are just proud to play a small role in contributing to a global movement. And we see that sustainability is a way to differentiate ourselves. If you look at whatever data that's out there, the expectation of the younger generation consumers is that they expect whichever products that are undertaken or purchased, that they would expect it to improve their lives. And as a result, the expectation in terms of what the product providers are providing or service providers are providing are much higher. But the reality is that the consumers do not feel that the brands are doing so. So we believe that there is an opportunity to differentiate ourselves from the market. Now, as part of driving that sustainability, the key driver here is about innovation. And for us, we'll talk a little bit more in terms of what are the things that we're doing as a way to kind of differentiate ourselves. Now, our Zurich Sustainability Framework is really centered across three main pillars that bolsters the creating a brighter future together. So the first, obviously, is our focus on climate. So our 1.5 degrees Celsius future, which is about focusing on that transition to climate neutral. The second is about work sustainability. So as the world changes, which we've seen during the pandemic, the emphasis and the importance is much stronger now in terms of supporting our people and the businesses that we have that are around us. And the third is really with the digitalization and the advancements and the speed in which where the countries and communities are moving, is that we need to ensure that there's confidence in terms of the foray into digital. And that's really about stewardship of the data, customer data, and making sure that there's ethical utilization of the data that's afforded to us. Now, our journey started about 14 years ago, and we took baby steps with key actions with unwavering commitment. And for us, it's as an early pioneer, we want to take that leadership in terms of climate. So we've done things such as be the first insurer to sign the business ambition for 1.5 degree, the pledge, taking the lead in terms of the Net Zero Asset Owner Alliance and so forth. Now, what that's translated to is recognition, and that recognition is less in terms of the statistical side, but more in terms of affirming that our purpose and our journey is on the right track. And we're here in terms of a long-term commitment in serving our customers, our employees, and our shareholders, as well as our communities. Now, I'll move into in terms of what the role is for climate change and sustainability in insurance, right? So why does it matter? And you've heard this from a lot of the speakers in terms of the brand reputation. We talked about in terms of reaffirming our purpose and ensuring that we can engage positively in terms of having that positive contribution and business opportunities and risk and return. But really what it is about doing the right thing. And the roles of the insurers and technical operators is quite big, right? The customers are expecting us to have much more involvement. The investors have seen higher returns with those funds and stocks that are tied with high ESG scores outperforming the market, so that we want to have ourselves held to a higher standard, as well as for those funds that we are investing in, that we also have a similar outlook. And the regulators are also making sure that there's sustainable finance regulations just from a longer-term perspective. So it's not a one-sided effect. It's the acceleration of multiple parties coming with a common kind of vision is really accelerating the change. Now, the three pillars I talked about, just to give you a little bit of color in terms of why, as the first insurer to sign the UN Business Ambition for the 1.5 degree pledge in 2019, it's really three parts to it. What we want to do is really reduce our CO2 emission targets. So we've set personal targets within the company in terms of migrating to renewable electricity, electric car fleets, steering in terms of internal carbon fund, really guiding our investment portfolio as real targets and emissions. The real focus in terms of launching sustainable solutions, and this is propositions both from a product and service offering standpoint, and delivering solutions for customers in terms of tool sets to quantify and qualify a lot of the impact from climate. And that includes looking at our risk assessment frameworks and really bringing in a lot of the complexities so that we're able to provide that advisory service in terms of managing risks for our customers. The second pillar I talked about in terms of confidence in the digital society is honoring the trust that's afforded to us by the customers. So delivering on our data commitments and making sure that the use of AI is within the ethical bounds that's expected from our customers. It's making sure that the data that we do have afforded to us through our ecosystem of partners as well as our customers are highly protected, and we do our utmost to uphold the safeguards of cybersecurity. And last but not least is really about the business resilience and further foray into the digitalization. The third part we talked about is on the social side. So where we want to do is embedding our work sustainability principles. And this really has to do with the evolution of digital into our businesses would mean that certain positions that used to be around would now have to transform, and that would require upskilling and learning opportunities and replatforming of skill sets for our people. So we want to make sure that as the evolution of technology occurs, that we're future-proofing our people and our organization to ensure that they can navigate through the kind of world of work and professionalism and career growth as we look to adapt to our customer needs. So for us, it's building out the foundation to ensure that the workforce of yesterday continues to remain relevant and we continue to address the changing needs of the consumers. Now, this is all great, right? So what does this mean? It's a long-term view in terms of how we act. And one of the things that really resonated with me was the importance. I took down some notes. Let me see. The biggest risk is inaction. And one of the favorite quotes I have is progress over perfection, which means that we have to make and continue to make baby steps. For us, it's a long-term game. So when we look at climate impact, we looked at modifying our climate management framework as well as our approach. We are incorporating climate risks in terms of our underwriting and investments. We hold ourselves and our investees into a higher standard. So when we engage with customers, we make sure that it is alignment with our climate kind of policy. In 2020, as an example, we engaged with over 260 companies to advise them of our thermal coal and oil sands policy. And that required that we had to divest the relationships, 36% of those relationships. Now, this is just a start. And we hope that this collective movement by the industry will help move us into the right direction. Now, being a global leader, we need to ensure that we have responsible investments. And that really is focused on three areas, not just the integration of the ESG risk and opportunities across all the asset classes, making sure that we make relevant impact investing. For us, we've set aside $5 billion as an impact portfolio target in Malaysia. About $100 million are in green investments portfolio. And in terms of advancing forward is making sure that we lead the front to make it impactful by using our resources available to us to gently push not just our peers, but also our partners towards this long-lasting change. So what does that mean? So sustainability, I talked about embedding it as part of our underwriting consideration. Now, it's not just about doing the right thing, but looking to ensure that we can add economic value. Right? So when we first embarked on this, in 2012, we took a deliberate approach to have a stand on certain positions, whether it's banned weapons, dam construction, oil, gas, and mining, particularly in the environmentally sensitive areas, and evolve that position in 2017 and 2019 with the plan to review that every 2 years. And really, this is about engaging and developing that position as new data points evolve to assess whether we continue relationships, whether we advise those consumers in terms of how they can mitigate and move off of that transition or support that transition, I should say, or whether we need to divest in terms of those relationships. And we developed a carbon intensity methodology in terms of making sure that we can help clients transition off of those portfolios. Now, it sounds easier said than done. And for us, it's really about adapting existing portfolios that we have, as well as looking to innovate on new ones. I know that a lot of our peers in the industry are looking to do so. One of the things that we have launched is a climate change resilience service. So this is about providing qualitative and quantitative support in terms of how clients can approach in terms of mitigating the risks associated with current as well as future exposures related to climate. And it's a service that we extended for all our companies, our partners and clients globally. Now, there are a lot of drivers also in terms of that's forcing us to really rethink our proposition that way in the market, and this is globally. The green recovery or the push for EVs and hydrogen vehicles for renewable energy. A lot of the countries that are moving towards the net zero and the policy making that's accelerated by COP26, heightening customer expectations and the demands of what it would mean to them and to their families and to their communities, and the evolving regulations in terms of the regulators expecting a higher kind of stance and outlook and planning. So to give you a little bit of viewpoint, there are kind of 4 phases that we have, and some of this might resonate with some of the other insurance partners that we have here on the panel. But really, if you look at retail and commercial, there are some early concepts that we're looking at, things such as the offsetting of the service in some of the more mature markets, carbon footprinting platform for SMEs, and on the commercial side, evolvement of parametrics. Things that are in development, we have some sustainable infrastructure cover on the commercial side, sustainable farming as it relates to agricultural covers. And on the retail side, some of the parametrics and even the electric vehicle charging stations covers as part of the mobility ecosystem are things that are in development. We have a number of things that are live in the market, whether it's e-scooter, e-bike, some simplified parametrics as it relates to earthquake, haze, some solar-related covers on the retail side. And on the commercial side, we do have green construction-related covers that we have. Now, what we're continuing to evolve are some of the more simple type ones that we have launched before, whether it's a one tree, one policy, green telematics, or even just electric vehicles covers, are things that we're evolving. Now, these are nothing new, but the idea is that as we gather more information and as the ecosystem of partners become more mature in terms of the services that they're offering, we believe that these are building blocks in terms of providing much more value and impact on a collective level. So two examples that we have, I know I rattle off a few, is sustainable infrastructure policy. So there's a builder's risk policy that's really focused around infrastructure projects that meet the sustainability standards. Some of our global customers, our clients, have asked this from us, and we've noticed that with some of the green financing trends, some of the borrowers have been able to lower their financing costs as a result. On the retail side, it's no secret that with EV vehicles, the mobility ecosystem is an area of interest. So whether that's just the vehicles or whether there are platforms as it relates to incentives, some of the services, the CO2 offsetting platforms, are some of the pieces that are into play that the ecosystem partners are looking to develop and to advance. We're seeing much more traction and speed in the more developed markets. But overall, globally, we are seeing quite a bit of interest. One other thing that I've not listed here is we do have one item which is related to microinsurance, and this is related to climate risk. And this is a proud collaboration we have with Nestle. That collaboration, let me just refer to my notes here, is related to a crop insurance. The crop insurance that's related, that's focused on blue marble, right? So it is related to coffee farmers. With the impact of climate risk, they are able to get some form of protection to not impact the livelihood of those coffee farmers. And that's been around for a number of different years. So it's little schemes and propositions and service offerings like this that we're doing globally that we hope is looking to make an impact. And some of these propositions are ones that we're evaluating for the Malaysia market, as well as in ASEAN. Now, if I translate this to what we're doing here also in Malaysia, flood resilience, Zurich has undertaken a global flood resilience program a couple of years ago in 2017. The view is that we will be impacting about 5 million customers globally by 2024 to have a positive impact. In Malaysia, what we've done is we've launched a flood resilience program to really ensure that we protect and we care for our customers, particularly in the East Coast and East Malaysia. We call it Being There When It Matters the Most claims program. And the idea is we launched this last year, and when we get notices of floods, we dispatch these trucks that would provide on-the-spot claims approval for up to 30,000, as well as prompt processing. And we've seen that we've supported 124 policyholders with a payout of claims at 1.4 million. Now, these are on-the-spot approvals that go out to help consumers at the point when they need it the most. We do have 24-hour flood claims call center that supports them, as well as flood relief items to get them through the moments that they need it the most. As part of CSR, we've looked to serve the communities, and with the pandemic, we've taken a pivot to ensure that we can sustain those communities. So our Eat Right to Play Right is really focusing around nutrition and instilling healthy habits. But when the pandemic came about, we could not, and this was a football program, we realized that face-to-face was not doable. So we rediverted our investments to supporting the families that are impacted. So the grant since 2016 has been about 13 million. Since COVID occurred, we've supported 375 families receiving monthly aid. The second part is obviously addressing the underserved, and this is related to the Orang Asli. We've done home building, and during the COVID period, provided support. So we've helped support 82 communities across 5 states, not just Zurich, but with our grant partners, as well as with EPIC, in terms of providing a more sustainable living during the difficult times that these communities have been facing. As many of you may know, Zurich Malaysia also on the P&C side has Zurich General Takaful. And one thing I'd like to highlight as part of VBIT, which I believe is a topic afterwards, is that we're doing our part to ensure sustainability, financial sustainability for the participants that are customers of Zurich General Takaful. So for us, we have a hybrid model, which is a combination of the Mudaraba and Wakala models. And since 2018, for the last 3 years, we've declared about 19 million, almost 20 million ringgit in surplus payments to the participants. We're extremely proud of doing this and view this as something extremely important in terms of giving back and sustaining the communities here in Malaysia. Now, the last piece I'd like to share with you, what we're doing in terms of to wrap it all in, is that beyond just focusing on climate as it relates to our customers and our partners and propositions and services in the communities, Zurich has undertaken a project to become the exclusive sponsor on a reforestation project. And it's something that we're extremely proud about. So we are partnering with a nonprofit called Instituta Terra. The aim is to plant 1 million trees to reinvigorate the biodiversity of the ecosystem. For those that do not know, about 7% of the Brazilian rainforest actually remains. And the focus is that with the contribution to this reforestation, up to 120 native species plants will kind of regenerate, and we'll bring back about 250 animal species back to the Atlantic forest. And we're really hoping that this has a contribution, and in terms of doing our part of helping to drive the biodiversity that will capture the carbon from the atmosphere. I'd like to take a minute to stop here to share a little clip to give you the highlights of that sponsorship. I don't see the video, so I'm not quite sure if the video is being played.
Hold on, yeah, Junior. We are actually pulling up the video. So Junior, maybe while the video is being pulled up, I will, if you don't mind, I will maybe ask one question from the floor and panelists, if that's fine. The questions that we have from the floor today is, appreciate if you can share what are the offering of the parametric and crop insurance that is being, what kind of crops are being covered by Zurich's offering?
Sure. So in Malaysia, we do not do crop insurance at the moment. There was some interest about 7 years ago, but that has not taken fruit. In the US, farmers, we are the #2 crop insurer in the market there in collaboration with the federal government. They have been advancing the crop insurance to support sustainable farming. So I believe there's wheat. I don't remember the crops off the top of my head, but we are the #2 there. In some markets globally, we do support it. So in the case of the coffee farmers, in partners with Nestle, who is a global partner of ours, we would look to provide schemes to support those coffee farmers, provided that they are upholding some of the sustainable practices, whether it is the legitimate use of workers above the minimum age, so minimum standards that need to be upheld. We do provide those types of cover. On parametric, for example, in Japan, we do have an earthquake parametric cover. For something like that, we are partnering with the utilities company to offer that protection. As you know, Japan is highly prone to earthquakes, and that's a cover that we do list. Some of the things that obviously in Malaysia will be relevant would be things such as haze and flooding in terms of parametric cover. So that's something that we're looking at. I wouldn't be surprised if others aren't looking at it, but those would be the covers that we think would be relevant for Malaysia.
Sure. I think thank you, Junior, for sharing. Maybe we'll let the video play and then we can continue the conversation.
Sure.
Thank you, Junior. Maybe I'll pass it back to you because I think you want to take us through the remaining of the slides that you have.
Sure, sure. I hope that video resonated well with many of you. Just as a personal note, I grew up in Venezuela when I was really young, and I was fortunate enough to visit the Amazon forest. So when I saw this video, it really resonated. And as a father, as a husband, and as a brother, I looked down at my kids and my friends' kids, and I realized that there's a sense of obligation and purpose, especially in the pandemic, in terms of making sure we do the right thing. So sustainability efforts that we're doing at Zurich really resonates well with me as well as our 1,600 staff. It is certainly a journey that we're taking. By no means are we the most perfect, but our ambition and our vision certainly reaffirms in terms of what our purpose is. And what it means is that in terms of our impact, the key is to ensure that we're delivering those babies, that we're working on those baby steps and making solid progress across four major areas. One is as an insurer, right? So doing our part to align our group-wide ambition in terms of climate approach to what we look to deliver, whether it is to enhance the way we assess risk and improve the carbon footprint with the industry bodies, having a firm stance in terms of what we stand up for in terms of what is right, and really driving that product innovation. For investors, really making sure that we increase our investments in our green investments and making sure that we make impactful change to the investment community through what we're able to do as investors. But more importantly, making sure that the staff that dedicate their day in, day out to the Zurich brand and servicing our customers as we navigate through what's happening around us globally, is that we prioritize the safety and the well-being of them. And it's not just about COVID, right? It's about the evolution and the pivots that are happening within the industry, that we need to make sure that the employees feel supported. And whether that is gender diversity and gender inclusion, whether that is upskilling of skill sets, we need to make sure that we feel that the employees are protected and they're part of the Zurich family. The last one is really about continuing our commitment to the community. And I talked about the Global Flood Resilience Program. Our aim, since what we've launched a couple of years back, is to really have an impactful outcome, really reaching out to 4 million people by 2024. And our Zurich Foundation, leveraging that foundation to really make more of an impact in the communities that we live in. So there's been some support for charities during the COVID-19. Some of you may know that we've partnered with another agency to do distribution of vaccines globally to the underserved and the underprivileged. So for us, with that, our pillars remain firm. We won't rest on these achievements. We hope that these achievements will inspire others to take on the mission and to do more, whether it's globally or even locally. And our targets remain firm. It is to align our business to the 1.5 degree Celsius future, reduce our emissions by half in 2025, which we are ahead of schedule. Our investments to reduce CO2 emissions in green building investments, as well as the equity and credit side. And last but not least, making sure that we take care of the people and the community, especially during these trying times. That concludes my discussion. I do know that there's some questions, so I can take on some questions if that makes sense. Marina?
Yes, Junior.
Okay.
Thank you very much for a succinct summarization of your key milestones. And I would like to, continue from the milestones that you've shared. We have today over a 400 audience that is also, keen to understand from this breakout group, this work stream is, given the achievements that you had and you've been on this, Zurich has been on this for 17 years, how have Zurich overcome, what are the biggest challenges over the 17 years, especially in the Malaysian context? If you have, what comes to your mind?
Okay, well, the 17-year journey was a global journey. If I look at Malaysia, I would say Malaysia has a very strong ambition, and we admire that the government and the regulators are pushing. I'm part of the JC3 SC3 committee, and it's a privilege to help contribute to that. we believe that there's a lot more work that I think that the regulators and the governments can help to support the evolution. I do believe that the industry needs to continue to make a concerted effort to make that change. Part of it has to do with education with the consumers. Part of it is our part to ensure that we have deliberate and concrete and concise plans to make that impact. You know, the idea for the flood trucks, for example, was not a deliberate, let's focus on what we want to do from a flood resilience. It was a very simple idea that one of the staff members came up and said, wouldn't it be great if we had trucks that can serve in the instant that these floods happen, that these trucks can be there in the communities when it's most impactful. And we have WhatsApp as a way to communicate, to pass the word. We have our branch managers, our agents and so forth, and it just happens. So I think what we need to have is a cultural mindset where everyone plays a small part in terms of making a meaningful impact. It's not about just the companies and the brands and just the regulators. It's about everyone taking that small step to make a larger impact for the industry.
Yeah, that's a very good context, because I think the idea is not to develop products and recommend it to the society, but really understanding what the societal needs are, what are the gaps, and then, you know, customizing what are the solutions that, you know, is fit for purpose for those gaps and where it matters the most. If you don't mind, I'll bring you to the next question, which gets more to the critical insurance and takaful sector. So in terms of insurance and takaful, how can the general insurance and the right, you know, considering having the underwriting considerations, how can life insurance and takaful start to integrate sustainability concepts into the underwriting considerations?
So it's a very broad question, because you can tackle it in many different ways, right? If you look at just in terms of the ESG approach, you can take it from the environmental side and climate side, right? I mean, do we underwrite certain agricultural or companies if they do not have sustainable farming practices, right? As an example, and we know that you know, that's something that is up for kind of a question mark. But it also can be, are we offering affordable usage-based insurance to the gig economy, right? The gig economy is an evolution where we need to sustain a new emerging working class, right? And is there something that we need to be able to do there in terms of developing? And the underwriting practices are completely different. I think what's going to be important is to identify what are the areas that we stand for, and where do we want to make the most impact and play that role. And by virtue of really problem solving it that way, you would be able to identify what the underwriting considerations would be. I mean, I could sit here and spend actually a whole day on this, but I think it depends on where you want to make the most impact, whether it's societal, whether it's environmental or governance, and then that will dictate kind of the flow of where we need to make those changes.
Understand, Junior. Maybe I'll go on to the other flip side of things, where when we look at shareholder from the investment side perspective, when we look at, you know, shareholder activism and engagement with companies that you also mentioned, essentially is driving your business partners to also start to consider and move. What are the key challenges, and how do Zurich maneuver, especially, you know, in your earlier slide you mentioned there are existing companies that have been flagged up, you know, with ongoing reviews, especially if they're in the coal and oil sands position. What would be your advice in handling such engagements?
So what I have to do is, so I've talked a lot in terms of what the company can do to help drive the sustainability. A lot of what you are asking right now is, what are the potential risk exposures that we have if we were to support those companies? Maybe I'd like to bring in Teresa for her to kind of share her thoughts and be able to answer that question. Teresa?
Sure, Teresa.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Junior. So basically from the perspective of, you know, not providing insurance immediately, or you just stop providing cover for companies who are in the transition stage, would be quite, you know, quite terrible, right? So the way Zurich starts the conversation would be to engage with the customer first, i.e., what are your sustainable plans for the future? How are you going to green your practices? What kind of sustainable work practices you will embark on before we further the conversation? And it would not be a straight away date cut, but there is a transition stage where both parties will agree to and come to an agreement and say that, okay, this is the time frame we have for moving it forward. It will be no different from how a banker would review a loan to a borrower, right? So what kind of sustainable practices would they kit out the say palm oil plantation with machineries, or the methodology of replanting, for instance, right? So all these have got to be discussed at that level. It's not one party saying no and then end of the story, but it's got to be an engagement. So that's a very important transition phase that has got to be engaged. Yeah.
I mean, if I can just add one quick thing. I think the other thing is that in Malaysia, I think we can do more. We wish there were more choices, as if versus, let's say, some of the markets overseas. So this is where I think the regulators, the banks, and the FI industry can help support this, so that it becomes much more circular in nature, right? We've made $100 million in terms of green investments. We could certainly do much more. And that's, if we're able to do this as an industry from a financial services standpoint, I think that the snowballing effect will have a much greater impact at a much quicker speed.
Yeah, Arina, if I can jump back to the question about life insurance and takaful, that would be a key point if they've got investment-linked products and they could use the green investments rather than just the conventional ones, because we've got track records showing, I mean, globally, that the outcome of sustainable green investments are also quite high, and if not better than the conventional ones. So from a Malaysian perspective, this would be one area that they could explore. And granted that there are limited green assets around to be had, one area that the investment or asset management companies could do together with FIs is to grow this base of green investments. Yeah.
I guess I appreciate, the context, Teresa and Junior, that you're sharing, at least especially for Malaysia. But the one quick question following up from the floor as well is, do you then see any challenges for corporate clients to get insurance coverage in the future if they are engaged in critical industry segments like coal and palm oil? So I know you mentioned about the nuances and transition consideration, but essentially I think where they are coming from is more of like, how critical would that transition, would it be intensified, or are you looking at the pace that is very much customized in Malaysia?
So okay, so the short answer is, from a Zurich standpoint, for coal industries, we do not. We took a stance to not insure. As you see, a lot of the insurers that are signing up globally, especially the multinationals, that stance is very clear, as well as the large players here in Malaysia. So right now, if you would ask me today, will I still get coverage? The answer is of course, at a price. Will you get coverage 5 years from now? I would probably not look to bet on it. I would probably look for people to pivot, no different than what other companies are doing. Schneider Electric that we saw. There's a lot of different companies that are out there globally that are moving from the old coal to now wind farms or solar as well as wind, renewable energy. And I do think that it will be difficult. That pace is certainly accelerating more so than what we've seen in the last 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah,
sure.
And additionally, Arina, from the perspective of investments as well, like I mentioned, loans for refinancing new equipment, new plants, for these similar industries, they would have to green them as well. So as a matter of fact, they would go greener, and then the challenge will be eased off. But if they, do not intend to green any of or reject any of the existing practices of plant and machinery, that would be also trouble for them to get investments for loans in future as well. So it works both ways, not just from an insurance practice perspective, but also from the financing perspective. Yeah, I know this is an insurance and takaful conversation, but it's got to jive together, right? So everyone has got to work together to bring sustainability to the table, not just one side of the hand and not the other hand. Yeah.
Yep. As you can see, I think the discussions at the floor is going beyond just what insurance and takaful is doing, but in the whole circular economy sector, what essentially is finance, sustainable finance means, and how do you rally that? Maybe I'll just close off with thoughts from both of you on TCFD, because essentially in Malaysia, TCFD is another angle that has been gaining much coverage and discussions, including the central bank has also provided the guidelines and recommendations to TCFD. But I think for those who have embarked and are midway through the Task Force on Climate-related Financial Disclosures, they would also like to get your thoughts, Junior and Teresa, as they looked at the overarching areas within TCFD matrix and disclosures. For those who are starting off in their first I would say 3 to 5 years, what are the key, what would be your recommendation as to, the first few steps to actually make sure, they learn from Zurich as well? Where are the areas that, they could hasten that to get on board faster?
Would you like me to take that question? I think the perspective is you have to have a strategy first for sustainability, right? And then stemming from the sustainability strategy, iron out what your metrics are to achieve. Okay, then you can disclose. It's all very good saying in the air that I'm going to have less carbon footprint, I'm going to have less of this, and I'm going to do more of that. But if you do not have a strategy, you will not land there, right? So TCFD is very good in the sense that it pins us down to what we have to disclose as a responsible corporate citizen, and therefore we have to focus on the strategy. So two very key points: where is your strategy and what are your key metrics to achieve what you can then disclose financially as what you have supported for sustainability. So this task force has worked for many years to come to a place, a standing where, what would be deemed as good disclosure and not just greenwashing, right? So that's very important, even if for a starter right now. And I believe in the insurance industry, there are a number of public listed companies who have been on that path because of by virtue of SC's requirement to disclose. There are some companies who have already been disclosing. So for the others, this would be my advice. Yeah.
Maybe I'll get Junior's last thoughts is, while some are already advancing and Teresa talked about strategy being the core focus area, what do you think is the biggest challenge to, advance in terms of TCFD for those who have already started but looking to mature on that journey? Maybe the harder question is,
that is a tougher question, Marina. I was going to say time's up on that one. It's not an easy question to answer, right? For those that are starting, I applaud the companies that have started. The key is to start, and I would have to say that I think the industry can do more to have a much more deliberate approach, and it's not just about the strategy, but a genuine and authentic approach in terms of what they want to get out of sustainability. And I think that it's not just the insurers that play their part, because there are other people in that ecosystem for that circular process to work, right? So in light of that, I think the key is just to be more deliberate. It's hard for me to answer that just because I echo what Teresa's saying in terms of making sure that you know exactly what you want to get out of it. And it's not the initial strategy, but it's like, what is your long-term view and where is it that you want to go with this? And how do you measure yourself and how do you ensure that you do it, as opposed to just, because it's very easy just to fall into the lull of doing the same old, right? The key is how do you then elevate that and make bold commitments? If you look at about a lot of the companies out there globally, they make certainly massive, bold commitments that you look at and you go, how are they going to achieve this, right? But I think it forces you to hold yourself to a higher standard. So maybe not just about the strategy, or making sure that you push yourself to the limit to say there's no other option. And that's what you're going to do. And maybe that's one way to kind of elevate the game that everyone has to undertake. For those that started and for those that haven't started, is just to get it started.
Thank you, Junior. Yep. So we actually have come to the end of your session. I would just like to, say a thank you note to Teresa and Junior for a wonderful session. I will sum up the key takeaway points from your session today by, highlighting the core focus areas that both Teresa and Junior has highlighted, whereby there is a digital evolution occurring, and from this there must be certain connectivity to understand what the customer changing needs are, and how this is also centered around upskilling the key workforces, not just to handle what the customers' changing needs are, but to also consider the integration of the climate risk management and the overarching ESG impact. The other part is, I like your point on progress over perfection. And this is a long-term game because you want to be well aware and well positioned that your business is still in existence in the 2050 scenario, and how this is also being done in rallying and pushing your business partners towards taking the journey and elevating the impact as a collective ecosystem. Now, with that, I thank you, Junior and Teresa, for your time. We're going to take a 5-minute break and we will be back shortly. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.